Hope to see you there. If you would, take your programs and stand with me. On the inside is called our Declaration of Principles, and I'm going to invite you to read that with me together. I believe in one God, one absolute power and first cause to all things. I believe that this power is perfect love, and it creates out of a desire to express love. I believe that all thought is creative, and how I choose to think creates my personal experience. I believe in the unity of all life and the immortality of the individual soul forever unfolding. I believe in the eternal goodness, the eternal loving kindness, and the eternal givingness of God to all. Our song this month is on the handout. We come together.
Take a look at the person next to you. Say, God loves you and I love you too. Feel the love and the unity. Lift your voice and repeat after me. We come together. We come together. We come together. In the name of love, we come together. We come together. We come together. In the name of love. Now look at the person next to you. Say namaste, I bow to you. I like it. Feel the love and the unity. Lift your voice and repeat after me. We come together. We come together. Come together. We come together. Come together. In the name of love, we come together. Come together. We come together. We come together. We come together. In the name of love, we come together. We come together. We come together. In the name of love, we come together. We come together. We come together. In the name of love.
Turn to those around you and say good morning and welcome. Wow. How wonderful. Regardless of what the weather is like outside, we got sunshine in our soul. Hit it.
I didn't get it last time, but I got it this time. I was ready for you this time.
So today we honor our graduating practitioners. And let me tell you just a little bit about what a practitioner is, because it's very multifaceted, but it's also very simple. The individuals that you're about to see have gone through many, many years of training, classes, education, self-awareness, self-inquiry, embodying these principles at a level that is much deeper than just the surface. Here's what they're required to do. When you come to them and ask them for prayer, it is their chief mission, their immediate response, to be able to see you as whole, perfect, and complete, to not see the effect. And in fact, when they do the prayer, this is what's so probably a paradigm shift for many of us. When they do the prayer, they do not do the prayer about the condition. The prayer is always about rearranging the thought behind the cause and not the effect. And I can tell you that it sounds wonderful in theory, right? But imagine the world that we live in, the human world that we live in, how sometimes we can forget how to do that. And so it is their vow, it is their commitment, it is actually a life path that they have chosen to be able to offer that service, not just to themselves, but to you as a community. And so would you hold your applause till all names have been read? But as I read these names, I'm going to invite them to come up and line up shoulder to shoulder, perhaps in front of this monitor out here. So the graduating class of 2014, Liz Akar. Hold your applause. Liz brought her friends. Yeah. Ann Atkinson. Scott Baker, who is not with us this morning. Shasta Bridges. Barbara Call, who is also not with us this morning. Kathy Daniels. Al Dellinger. Mr. Al's got a suit on today. Okay, hold your whistling till all of you. Pat Farmer. Kim Huffman. Lee Huffman. Reginald Knox. Will Mathis. Sanichi Nana. Carrie Patton. Karen Ratz. Brandy Russell. Scheherazade Taylor. And Idella Veal. Now you may applaud these beautiful souls. And now I would like to invite, I'm not going to try not to use the word old practitioners, but the previous licensed practitioners, if you will come and stand behind any one of these individuals, you will be given a stole upon which you will place around their neck at the appointed time. And you might have to do double duty. If the newbies would step forward a little bit, and so that the live stream audience will not see my booty, but I will sit down so they can see you. So they can see you. A practitioner consciously removes the apparent obstruction and leaves the field open to a new influx of spirit. The practitioner resolves things into thoughts, dissolves the negative appearance in the condition by recognizing only perfection. The practitioner must know and must state that there are no obstacles in the pathway of truth. The practitioner must know that their word, being the activity of the truth, removes all obstructions from the pathway of those they pray for. And so you may answer the following with the response, I will. Will you resolve from this day forward to continuously move into greater understanding of the power of the Word and to uphold the sanctity of the Word by using it for healing and healing alone?
I will.
If nature and life are one, if God is one, and we know that God must be one, for the universe cannot be divided against itself, then all is tied together in an indivisible unity. We are invited to get back to this unity to find the meaning of freedom. And again, by answering, I will you devote yourself to being absorbed in this path of unity? And by absorption, meaning devote yourself willingly in the continuing expanse of your infinite nature.
I will.
Do you, as a practitioner of religious science, agree to your life path from a path of principle, a vehicle of the conscious use of law, rather than from a path of popularity? We believe that love is the greatest healing, motivating power in the universe because love is givingness. We do not think we can pray an effectual prayer or be a good human being without great love. It is the only thing that unbinds the captive, penetrates the walls of obscurity, and sets the captive free from the prison of their own creation. Again, by answering, I will you devote yourself to being a vehicle by which love may be expressed? And now by answering, I do you understand that in order to make such a vow, you must first and foremost devote your mental processes to the love of you, uncovering any and all barriers that stand or attempt to overshadow your own relationship with love? And by answering, I am. In so doing, are you willing to know that love is the only reality of every individual you pray for, regardless of appearances? It is the practitioner's business to uncover God in everyone. God is not sick. God is not poor. God is not unhappy. God is never afraid. God is never confused. God is never out of its place. The premise upon which all mental work is based is perfect God, perfect man, perfect being. You have agreed to willingly live your life from a place of power through the Word, to live as an instrument of principle, being unified with the oneness of God, and you have vowed to be an expression of love to yourself and to others. All of this is dependent upon how deeply you dip your cup of willingness into the infinite waters of power and purpose. So I invite you to repeat after me these sentences. This first one, I'm going to invite you to place your name after the word I. I, as a licensed practitioner of religious science, do willingly devote my life to a path of ever-evolving consciousness. I devote each day to the expansion of awareness. And know that by doing so, I surrender my choices, my life, and my mind to the one great universal presence. I serve and support this community with a loyal spirit and a generous smile. And that's a cue for you to smile. Holding accountable this sacred vow as long as I serve as a practitioner of Spiritual Living Center of Atlanta. And now you as a community, would you please stand and repeat after me? We support you as practitioners of religious science with our prayers, our respect, and our love, and give thanks for your willingness to serve. You may be seated. And now, if our oldies but goodies will now take the stoles that they have within their hands and place them around the shoulders of the new graduates. If you will adjust that stylishly. Ladies and gentlemen, I now present to you the graduating class of 2014. You may be seated. Thank you. And now to lead us as we prepare for our meditation time this morning, she's not an oldie, she's just a goodie. Janet Riley, let us prepare for prayer.
Thank you, Reverend David. I invite you to settle into your chair and be comfortable. Your feet flat on the floor. Clear your laps. Take a deep breath or two. And center yourself in this knowing with me. There is one infinite power and intelligence in this universe. It is everywhere present and always available to me. It is around me, within me. And I have the freedom to choose to align with this power and use it in my life. I am one with this power and infinite intelligence. I use it with every thought, with every word I speak. When I make the choice to recognize and realize that I can use this power and create every experience in my life to be one of peace, to be one of joy. It completely shifts the way I see my world. I can recognize the same power, intelligence, all around me, in everybody I meet. And I know every experience, every condition that is part of my life's experience is good. If this power is all that exists, and I know it is, that means that everything I see, everything I experience, and everything I can choose to express is God, is of God, and it is good. I make the decision now to move through my days, seeing through eyes of love, choosing to express peace and love and joy because they are my inherent nature. Grateful to know this truth, grateful to accept it as my truth and your truth, as the only truth. I understand that omnipotent law has already made this so. And it is with gratitude and a clear understanding of its sacred significance in my life, I release it, and together we say, and so it is.
There is so much love. There is so much love. There is so much grace. There is so much grace. There is so much joy. There is so much joy. In this place, there are open hearts. There are open hearts. there is peace on each face. Spirit's with us now. In this place. In this place.
Yes, he is. If you have a pen or a pencil with you, maybe a scrap piece of paper, if you can avoid it, don't write on the blue thing, because that's what we try to recycle. But if you have some scrap paper, just get that out. And how many of you have ever played tic-tac-toe? So just on a little piece of paper, just draw that graph, that grid of a tic-tac-toe. And then play with your neighbor, and then we'll all go to brunch. All right. And whoever wins pays. Okay. Okay, so while you're doing that, I had a dream this week, and in this dream, I was on a panel, and there was a moderator of the panel, and the moderator asked this one very basic question. I don't, in the dream, know who else was on the panel with me, but I do remember being very conscious about what my answer is going to be. I wanted it to be good. And the question was this: what does the world need? So the moderator just simply asked, what does the world need? And I remember thinking, oh, it's got to be good. It's got to be good. You're on a panel. It's got to be good. And as I sat there formulating my answer, what came out of my mouth was, the world needs to wake up. And I thought that was very ironic because I was having that while I was dreaming. So, but the world needs to wake up. And so what does waking up mean? What does waking up actually mean? What does being asleep mean? And so when we start to pull those things together and provide definition to that, I think it's very, very understandable that to be awake means to be fully present, to be conscious, to be aware. But what are we conscious and aware of? Because to be awake spiritually means to be aware of the fact that everything that is transpiring out in the world of effect, is perhaps a dream. And the only thing then that is real are the things that are equated to or synonymous with what we would understand God or harmony to be. So then, with that as a definition, how much of our world right now is asleep? About this much. And then how much of our world is actually fully awake? And so when we look at that comparatively, we are given an opportunity to choose, to decide. Do I want to live my life being asleep, or do I want to live my life being awake? Now, of course, all of us in here are going to say awake, because you're people pleasers. But what are the requirements of that? Seriously. What does it mean to be in authenticity, to say, yes, what I choose to do and how I choose to live my life is from a platform of being awake, of consciousness? Because there's quite a bit of difference. To be awake, to me, means to be illumined. And there is a beautiful phrase about spiritual illumination. And when spiritual illumination takes place within the individual, it takes place when and only when the individual has gravitated to a level of consciousness where they realize that God is indeed in all things. There's a spiritual illumination. It's as if the lights have come on. It's as if all awareness substantiates the idea that we are, as the practitioners were called to take a vow, to be perfect God, perfect being, perfect universe. That's what spiritual illumination is. It's not just reserved for the mystics. It's not just reserved for the wise prophets. Spiritual illumination is actually your calling. It's actually the true you. In fact, consider this. You already are spiritually illumined, but somewhere along the line, you and I found a switch, and we've turned it off. A lot of that turning off of that spiritual illumination has been done out of unconsciousness. It's been done because of the platform or the circumstance or the family dynamic, whatever it was that surrounded us in our formative years. But illumination, or the word light, as it's used in all sacred text, the Bible, any other sacred text, is the symbol. Light is the symbol of that spiritual illumination. So think about it. When you go back now to the book of Genesis, it's not just light as you and I understand it. But when the commandment was, let there be light, the commandment was, let there be spiritual illumination within the individual. Let there be spiritual illumination within all of creation. That means you and I. Spiritual illumination then is the inner capacity in us to perceive a divine idea and to assimilate it into consciousness. Not to just think about it or read about it, but to actually assimilate it into our very level of awareness. Any idea then which is assimilated into consciousness must then express through our actions, through the way in which we live. So are we assimilating our illumination? Are we allowing that to be integrated inside of us? In one of the late publications written by our founder, Ernest Holmes, he wrote, "There is a light that permeates the world, but we have not sensed it. We need, in the silence of our own contemplation, to take time to feel that light and to see it. We have to hitch our earthly wagon to a spiritual star. Because if we do not, we are going to hitch it to a make-believe life, something that has no light whatsoever at all. The only light there is the light of the eternal." Think about that. You've heard the phrase, hitch your wagon to the stars, right? Hitch your earthly desires to that which is infinite possibility. But what are you hitching your wagon to, your being to? If you are hitching it or attaching it to something based in the world, then it's for naught. But to hitch it to a spiritual star is spiritual illumination being activated. And there has always been people throughout time, at least in recorded time that we know of, who have brought this message. And those people were Buddha of India, Lao Tzu of China, Jesus of Nazareth. Many, many, many of these people brought this message of spiritual illumination. But what was interesting is that every single time the message was brought, it was interpreted as if it was the messenger who was spiritually illuminated and not the invitation for all of us to own it. And so what did we do? We then deified those people. We made them special. We created this false sense of us and them. We created platforms and pedestals by which we put these prophets and we put these teachers up there. And what we then did was we held in reserve spiritual illumination for only certain people. When in actuality, spiritual illumination is exactly who we are. It is who we are to the very core of us. And all they were saying is, it's not the messenger, it's the message. And the same holds true today. It has nothing to do with the mouthpiece of the person who's speaking it, and it has everything to do with whether or not you have the ears to hear. For those who have ears, let them hear. Hear the spiritual tone, hear the spiritual emphasis, hear the spiritual intention behind the message. And you know what? There's such great validity. If you and I could do that, imagine if you could separate the message from the messenger. Years and years and years and years and years ago, when I was in Los Angeles, it was one of those really blessed times for me when, because I was working with Louise Hay, during these years, I got to see people, I got to meet people, I got to be in the presence of a lot of them. And they put their pants on one leg at a time, like you and I do. Oh my God, they have to eat and brush their teeth, and their breath smells just like our breath smells. And so, once you understand that, once you comprehend that they're just delivering the message, then the amazing thing happens because, this is what we do. We're so funny. When we attach it or project it onto the messenger, then we watch them. We watch for any immediate flaw. We watch for any immediate discrepancy between the way they are and the message. And, so be it. Any of us who signed up for that, we signed up for that, right? But what would be fascinating would be to watch the crowd observe that, that fishbowl existence, and then say, hypocrisy or false prophet. I had a person that I was in a relationship with her for a while. His favorite thing to do was to call somebody a false prophet. False prophet. And if somebody's putting that much energy and time into calling somebody else a false prophet, what do you think's going on inside of them? Right? You spot it, you got it, right? And so, what I realized when I could distance myself from the messenger to the message was that I could actually sit, and even though backstage they may have just thrown a temper tantrum, I could still sit and I could listen. And what I came to understand was, if anyone in that audience got even one shred of inspiration, then that mission was complete and that mission was successful. In other words, whatever the message was intended, and by whatever vessel it came from, mission accomplished. And so I realized there is no such thing as a false prophet. And the reason that I expound on that right now is because I think sometimes you and I hold our spiritual illumination at bay because we don't think we're good enough, or we don't think that we matter, or we have so much invested in what we've done wrong that we use that, either consciously or unconsciously, to think that we don't measure up and there's nothing really of value that we can offer. And I want to tell you that that's a fallacy, because you are just as much a vessel of spiritual illumination as I am, as any one of these practitioners are, as Oprah. Well, maybe not. Maybe a little bit. But you start to get the idea, right? Because if we wait till we're perfect, then we will all be waiting. And so the idea is, are you willing to own your spiritual illumination right now? And to know that whatever comes out, whatever it is that you're able to offer another individual from that purity of just truth, basic pure truth, then that's good enough. That's good enough. And so I think when I looked at this idea, I realized that spiritual illumination is like the combination of three things that I came up with, and thus the tic-tac-toe graph, right? And so if we get three in a row without any interruptance, without any interference whatsoever, then we win and we become spiritually illuminated. Are you ready? Here we are. We're going to play. Okay. So X's or O's, pick. I like O's. So we're all going to be O's. X's, yeah. Okay. So for the first square, here's what we have to decide, and here's what we have to come into agreement with. For that one, in order to create this formula for spiritual illumination, here's what you and I have to decide upon and commit to. We have to decide whether or not we're going to live in God's world or we're going to live in humankind world. Sounds pretty cool, right? Sounds pretty easy, but lo and behold, this is the biggie. Because if you and I cannot master this, then the other two parts of the square don't matter. Do you want to live in God's world, or do you want to live in the human world? So, what's God's world? God's world is everything that we've talked about and everything that we share philosophically about the idea that the only thing that is real is God. And God, again, is not a deity separate from us. It is life itself. It is the energy behind all sentient beings. It is who you are. It is the totality, the reality of who you are. And so to live in that means that we do not entertain any of those opposites. To live in God's world means that we take a vow, just like all these practitioners took a vow today. We take a vow to live in God's world as much as possible rather than the human world. What does that look like? That means that 100% of the time, we have the option to go, is this real? Is this the human world, or is this God's world? If I'm operating and living and breathing and having my being in God's world, then there is no room for worry. There is no room for upset. There is no room for taking anything personally, because what we know is that expression is expressing itself exactly as it needs to be. That life is unfolding exactly as it needs to be. When I see perceived chaos from the human world, I look at that and I celebrate the self-regulating intelligence that is going on in that moment. I can watch the news. I can read reports. I can open a newspaper. I can be in conversation. And I am not swayed either way into a component of fear, because what I know that is taking place right now is this divine order, even when I can't see it. That's God's world. Are you willing to then consider with me that the other world isn't real? Can you have one or the other? If only one is real, then which world is real? So when we are not engaged in the activities of God's world, what are we engaged in? Illusion. You really ready to take that in? Are you really ready to consider that anything that is not a component of God's world is not real? Now look at everything that we've made real in the human world. You don't like me. That feels real. They did this to me. That feels very real, doesn't it? But what are we saying? It's not real. Because the only thing that is substantiated and has validation and has breath and has life in it is anything that is God. So then don't you see, when you start to really dive deep a little bit better and be willing to go further down into the level of awareness, that when you say God is all that there is, that there's something enormous about that. It's not just a pithy catchphrase. It's not just a logo on a t-shirt. It's not just something that we recite in our declaration of principles. It's actually a lifestyle, and it's a decision that we make. So if you decide, if you are making a decision today that you want to live in God's world, then you fill out your little grid on your tic-tac-toe thing. So far, so good. If at any point during the service you feel any resistance, then put the opposing symbol right after that, because you've just blocked your chance to win. And you don't get a candy bar afterwards. No. Okay, so there's the first component. Everybody understand? So here's what's fascinating then, if you're willing to take the ride. Let's just show you how my mind works. So if you're willing to take the ride and you commit to God's world, look at a couple of these things. The two greatest teachers in God's world are nature and children. Two greatest teachers in God's world are nature and children. And here's the reason why. Nature and children in their infancy totally operate from their inherent goodness. Totally operate from a place of just being. For example, nothing within nature needs coaching. There's no classes for the flora and fauna crowd about finding your life's purpose. So everything within nature just, you ready? Is. It just is. There's no comparison. There's nothing. There's no cynicism that's developed. There's no lack or limitation. Everything within nature just is. So if everything in nature just is, then look at two things that we have had. You ready? This is good. I promise this is good. Look at two things, two elements that you and I have developed, all of humankind has developed, because we live in the human world. The first element is faith. Do you think nature needs faith? Do you think that nature gathers together and goes, I've really got to work on my faith? Why? Because nature has no obstruction to its inherent nature. In order for faith then to be implemented, there has to be an opposing force. What's the opposing force to faith? Doubt and fear. So in order for you and I to even go down the road of faith means that we've already forgotten and we've gone to sleep. And so what do we have to do? We have to wake up. We have to wake up and we have to realize, oh my God, faith is something that humans have manufactured because we have forgotten. Right? Okay, the next one is courage. Faith and courage. Do you think that plants get together and go, come on, I know you can do it? Just bust through that soil, baby. You know, and all the seeds, they get together and they actually do a fire walk and they bust, blocks of wood and they do all of this kind of stuff. You got that flower in you. You got that flower in you. Come on, baby. You got that flower in you, baby. Yeah. I know you can do it. It just is. It just does. And so we, in our forgetfulness, have created something called courage. And in order for us to even go down the path of courage, what did we first have to believe in? Failure and fear. Children, when a baby is using its inherent nature and it pulls itself up in order to find its balance, it isn't doing that because someone told it to. It's because its inherent nature is driving that instinct within them to stand up. It's driving that instinct within them to begin to feel their legs, regardless of how wobbly it is, and to just go. And so isn't it fascinating that when a baby is doing this, and it stands up and it falls, and it stands up and it falls, and it stands up and it falls, and finally it stands up and it wobbles and it takes a step, you and I don't go, oh, that baby is so courageous. We don't even go there. We just say, oh, because you and I have an expectation that that's exactly what's supposed to happen. And when we watch and observe nature, we have an expectation that that's exactly what's supposed to happen. Where did you and I lose that our good and our wholeness is exactly what's supposed to happen? And so what did we do? We got together and we developed the concept of faith and courage. And probably a lot of people won't like that message, but that's what came through this week. Because I'm writing the last chapter of my book, and I call it In the Meantime. And if you've taken a class with me, you know how much I love to talk about in the meantime. Because in the meantime is the soil time. In the meantime is the way you and I live our life. In the meantime is the description between the idea and the idea's manifestation. And your life, my life, everything is predicated on what you and I do in the meantime. And so in the meantime, is our in the meantime filled with faith and courage? Which is fine, which is certainly a stepping stone. But what I want to do is push you further. And I want to say, can your in the meantime be filled with simply knowing? How would you show up in life? How would the complete quality of your life shift if your in the meantime was absorbed in total knowing? So if you want to live in God's world, you put that circle there. The next one is you and I are invited to learn how to see with our mind and not with our eyes. To see with your mind means that you live your life from a place of vision, right? Not faith, vision. Vision is when you know inwardly that that's exactly, you expect that. And even though you can't see it with the eye, you can see it with the mind. And in the mind, we create what Ernest Holmes, our founder, called a spiritual prototype. If you cannot create the prototype of what you long for, then you're not going to see it. And it's not going to happen. But if you can visualize, if you have the vision for what you see, and you know and expect that, then that in the meantime period is exactly what needs to happen and exactly what needs to unfurl. And sometimes we get swayed, but it's amazing how one moment of clarity, One moment of clarity can change our entire perception. I found this old piece that dates back before 500 BC. And it said, "It easily happens that a man, when taking a bath, steps upon a wet rope and imagines that it is a snake." I'm sure we've all done that, right? Taking a bath, steps out, steps on a wet rope, and imagines that it is a snake. Horror will overcome him, and he will shake from fear, anticipating in his thought all the agonies caused by the serpent's venomous bite. What a relief does this man experience when he sees that the rope is no snake. The cause of his fright lies in his error, his ignorance, his illusion. If the true nature of the rope is recognized, his tranquility of mind will come back to him. He will feel relieved. He will be joyful and happy. This is the state of mind of one who has recognized that there is no personal self and that the cause of all of our troubles, cares, and vanities is a mirage, a shadow, and a dream. So spiritual illumination or vision allows us to move away from the interpretation of a snake into the interpretation of all that is good and all that is pure and all that is supportive. And so without vision and with sight, we might see only snakes. If we are to listen to the news, we might think that the world is nothing but a snake pit. And so if we imagine then the world to be nothing but a snake pit of fear, of transgression, of man's inhumanity to man, regardless of how real it sounds and feels and is told to us, if we visualize the fact that it is a snake pit, then we will never experience the transformation of being able to walk into that and have a different experience. The whole allegory in the Bible of Daniel in the lion's den is about that. And the fact that here's this den of lions and they throw the prophet Daniel in there expecting the lions to devour him. But because he gives the lions no credence, and he gives them no power, he is able to stand among them unscathed. And so can we do the same? But in order to do the same, we must live from a place of vision and not the boxed, limited, finite idea that the world tells us is true. It's radical. It's radical. People will call you crazy. People will call you, will label you as being in denial. They will say that you don't know what you're talking about. They actually might even curse your existence and say that you're part of the problem. But in reality, what you get to know is that I live in God's world. And people will struggle with that. And there will be other people who will be on the other side of that, celebrating you and welcoming you home. As I begin to think about this for myself, I told you several weeks ago about how fascinated and how enthralled I was with time-lapse photography. And that in that, you're able to see faith in action, when really it's knowing in action. Because when you look at that, you see the seed, and then you see the flower, and then you get to see in real time everything that transpires between those two things. So the in the meantime is shrunken into real time. And I thought, what a wonderful thing it might be if you and I had the capability of doing that for ourselves. If a photograph was, a camera was positioned on us, and it just went and went and went and went and went for years and years, so that the older you could now say to the present day you, relax. Relax. All you have to do is choose God's world. Relax. All that you have to do is learn to operate from vision. Know that that thing that you were so worried about, know that that problem that paralyzed you, that solution was right around the corner. And you haven't probably even met the person who's going to be the embodiment of the solution yet. It means that today when you leave this place, you could run into somebody who could completely change the trajectory and the quality of your life. You haven't even met them yet. But if you allow yourself to live from vision, then that's the kind of expectancy. That's the kind of flame that licks at us and lights us and illuminates us and tells us, come on, play in that expectancy and know that it's there. And maybe then what that essence would say to you is this: there will never be any circumstance that can ever warrant the closing of your heart. Life is more provisional than personal. Provisional meaning transitory, rather than personal. Stop taking things so personally. Learn to be fluid and do not cling to what was. There will never be anything worth the investment of retaliation, no matter how large the agreement from the populace. No matter how many people you get on your side to go, it was them, it won't be worth it. Learn to laugh, particularly at yourself. Worry will never be a profitable way to spend your time, and know that there will never be a place on earth where the gift of you will not be enough. You will rise and you will fall, but from it all, you will accept the choice to thrive. For a well-lived life, you'll discover, is exactly that, a choice. Relax. Enjoy your undeniable intelligence. So if you choose to live from vision rather than just from limited sight, put another circle in that tic-tac-toe grid. And then lastly, and I brought this up last week, learn to be progressive rather than consistent. To be consistent, I think, is playing it safe, playing it small. It could actually be disguised in unspoken and unconscious fear. But to be progressive means that you are a cutting-edge sensibility person, that you are making decisions and embracing mystery rather than relying on history, that you are moving forward with a place of assurance, knowing that all is well. And so if you could go back in time when you first got your driver's license, do you remember that? Do you remember being in driver's ed? Remember in that car? Oh, Lord. Remember all the things they told you had to do, right? So one was MOSG. Mirror, over the shoulder, signal, go. Mirror, over the shoulder, signal, and go. To me, that's consistent. Because when you're doing it that way, what you're doing is you're waiting for an opening to happen. If you check the mirror first and you look over your shoulder, what are you going to see? Most of the time, there won't be an opening. Most of the time, it will be the world going as it needs to go, fast and furious. And if you're waiting for the world to give you permission before you signal and go, then you will be sitting in that lane constantly. And so the solution for that is smog. Signal, mirror, over the shoulder, go. Signal means I'm telling the universe what I want. I'm moving into this lane. I'm not even going to look to see if there's an opening yet. I'm just signaling. I'm giving the intention and I'm saying this is the way it's going to be. And then when I signal, then I might check the mirror and I might look at the conditions of the world around me. And then over the shoulder, and then I go. But the beautiful part about signaling first is that what you have done is you have placed the intention. If you do not signal first, if you just look at the temperature and feel everything before you make a decision, then you will always be eating an undone cake. So, if you don't signal, the only way that anyone can tell what it is that you want is through telepathy. And I can't give that many people that much credit. The longer you signal, even when there's no opening at first, the more pressure you build for the other drivers to let you in. And so to be progressive means that you learn to signal first without gathering everybody else's opinion. What do you think about this? What do you think about this? Do you think I should cut my hair and wear it this way? Do you think I should wear this? We go around collecting public opinion before we even signal. You know what you want. You do. You know what you want. Let's just stop pretending that we don't know what we want. Because you do. You want to be free. You want to be free. You want to be happy. You want to feel seen. You want to feel heard. You want to feel loved. But guess what? In order for any of those things to transpire, what do you have to first do? Do them for yourself. Do them for yourself. So to be progressive in this world that sits and waits means that you don't sit and wait. You become your own cheerleader. You become your own champion long before anybody else comes along and does it for you. And that's the way that it works. So if you are willing, then, to be progressive rather than consistent, then you fill in that grid. And if, my friends, you have completed that, you are now spiritually illumined. And so it is. And we are over time, but you know what? I want you to pray with me. I want you to pray with me. And here's what I want this prayer to look like. Close your eyes. Take a deep breath. I want you to imagine that this spiritual illumination actually looks like a lighted cord, and that cord, that beam of light, is coming from the heavens, the things that you cannot see, but you have the vision of it. And it's coming and it's entering into the crown of your head. And this light now, when it enters the crown of your head, has full permission to spread completely through you. And so it does, traveling from cell to organ to tissue to atom, everything, molecule, you name it. This illumination, this light now, just infiltrates all of you. And as it travels through the whole entire cavity of your body, your physical body, it now exits out of the soles of your feet and goes into the ground and into the core of the earth. So that all of a sudden, here you are, a part of this, this skewer of illumination, this skewer of light that is just through you. And so now imagine that wherever you go, you are in this light. Wherever you go, whatever decision you make, whatever circumstance you find yourself in, you are a part of this light. There is no separation. And you are in God's world. And in God's world, here's what happens. You think it is so. That in the meantime process is diminished to the point where it happens in real time. It is the declaration, the power within you. It is the let there be light. It is the commandment. It is the knowing that everything that you could ever desire or want is here. It's made manifest. It is you now deciding whether or not you want to choose this reality or you want to stay loyal to something that doesn't serve you. And so now we make the decision to stay loyal to that which is God's world. To open ourselves up to the majesty of that, to the spaciousness of that, to the liberation of that, to the freedom of that, where we stop signaling and waiting for somebody else to give us permission, but we know and we move and we create the intention for ourselves. Where we hold within us now a vision of a life so expansive that we celebrate the fact that the key people who are going to be a part of our vision, we haven't even met yet. That's how expansive this journey, this adventure of life is to be. And so as we stand in awe of that, as we stand connected now to this illuminated light that travels through us, we can say in all authority that I move and I breathe and I have my being as God. And so say with me, I am light. Say with me, I am whole. Say with me, I am power. Say with me, I am wisdom. Say with me, I am love. Say with me, if you dare, I am God. And as I allow this now to permeate through me, I open my heart, and I know that I know that I know. And together we say, and so it is. Did you feel it? Sinichi Nana, come up here. Come on up. Will you take that vibration and lead us into our affirmation for grateful giving? You're welcome.
I love this place. I am just well, you brought me back down to this reality here. And I'm just so thankful, so grateful for life, for each one of you, for the community. This is a place where truly I see acceptance. I see community. I feel love. I feel freedom to just be. I look around and I see the diversity, the people, and it is absolutely gratifying. It is humbling. It is, I spent a part of my life feeling I wasn't enough. And I come here and I know that I am enough, just as I am. Each one of you is enough, and really the gift of your being is what life is calling for. And just join with me, because this gift continues to give, and it's not just that we give to others, but we give others the permission to also be themselves and to just be open and be free. So please join me in this affirmation of gratefulness. I live in a universe of abundance. I freely and joyfully give. I join in the divine flow, and as all I share with life returns to me multiplied abundantly, and so it is. Thank you so much.
I also wanted to give thanks for the music team today. We have a drummer that is fantastic. It's his first day with us, Kina Boto. Fujimoto on bass, and Ty Andrews leading our vocals, as well as John Jones, who showed up for this late service. We're so glad to have you, John, and Mark Berkey. And we thank you so much for your service. Thank you, Ty.
Thank you. And I just want to say thank you to the entire community of Spiritual Living Center of Atlanta for always supporting my music. I'm happy to announce that my music video, Letting Go, was just nominated for 2015 Posse Award. So thank you so much. Thank you. It was you that encouraged me to sing when I didn't think my voice was good enough. So with gratitude, I thank you. This next song I'm going to do for you is an original song I wrote that's going to be on my new upcoming album. It's called It's Your Thing. Can you put your hands together and join me? Little 60 soul here. Well, well, well. someone else's fault. Ego had a really big point of view, but when I saw a higher truth, another message came through. It's your thing. What you choose is what you gain. It's your thing. What you choose is what you gain. I thought a fancy car had the key to unlock my needs. I still want that convertible though, just saying. Swimming with the sharks, my life was dark and full of misery. A career may pay the bills, but when you work on you, your life would be fulfilled. Is your thing. What you choose is what you gain. It's your thing. What you choose is what you gain. Come on, Penelope, take some. Tell me what you got. It's your thing. Life can be a crazy game, so release it to the floor, brother, enjoy a pain. It's your thing. It's your thing from start to end. Let the power play for you, fit, present, or win. It's your thing. You know what you gotta do. Tell the fear to move aside and let the good come through. It's your thing. What you choose is what you gain. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Get your thing, get your thing. What you choose is what you gain.
Ty Andrews and his new CD. Make sure you go and visit him in the lobby. Yeah, he's out there. Celebrating his EP release and his What's Up and Coming for Ty. Thank you, Ty.
Woo! Oh my God, he's got a table today. Y'all go say hi to him and support him. He's got wonderful things out there to show you. I'm going to ask our oldie but goodie practitioners to come, and I'm going to ask the newly licensed one if they will join me outside, sort of in a receiving line, and you can welcome and encourage them. And as our other practitioners come forward, give them the luxury and the ability to know with you that you live in God's world. How about that? And the new practitioners are going to join me outside as we sing our closing song together.
I am so blessed. I am so blessed. I am so grateful for all that I have. I am so blessed. I am so blessed. I am so grateful. I am so blessed. I am so blessed. I am so blessed. I am so grateful for all that I have. I am so blessed. I am so blessed. I am so grateful. I am so blessed. Thank you so much. Have a great weekend, everybody.